All right. Got my couch buddy with me over here. She's enjoying Galatians with me. Um, I want to get right into this because it's pretty interesting. So Paul introduces that he is a apostle through Christ, which we see in the road to Damascus, and that this means that he has the gospel through a revelation of, from Christ himself. I had a similar experience in that I was had a sorry, but I had a my daughter's coming in here right when I'm in the middle of doing this. Um, a similar experience with a friend of mine who I've been studying the Bible as a new Christian, but hadn't quite had the time to study in detail yet. And then after getting to know him for a while, all of a sudden he goes, I'm just so surprised how much the Holy Spirit has revealed to you. And over the years, I'm kind of surprised too how much I knew and didn't realize how biblical it was. God tends to do this. And this is exactly what happened to Paul. He says later in Galatians, he's gonna demonstrate this. Now, Paul is now dealing with the Judaizers who have come to the Galatians with what they think is true. And here's what Paul says in response. He says, I am astonished that you are so quickly deserting him who called you in the grace of Christ and are turning to a different gospel. Not that there is another one, but there are some who trouble you and want to distort the gospel of Christ. But even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to the one we preach to you, let him be accursed. As we have said before, so now I say again, if anyone is preaching to you a gospel contrary to the one you received, let him be accursed. For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ. I had a guy just last night at work tell me he's an unbeliever, as far as I can tell. And he's from the South. And he said that he just hated how in the South people were just constantly pushing religion on him. And he was complimenting me. He said, I really like the way you do it. You never force me to talk about religion. And whenever you get a compliment like that from an unbeliever, you thank them, but on the one hand, and on the other hand, you're like, man, I don't want to be compromised, you know? But I have a strategy, so I feel fine about it. I'm biding my time, and I'm expecting God to open doors. And that is actually the opening of a door. He's clearly thinking about it. But we have to make sure, why does Paul bring up pleasing man? And it's what I said yesterday. These Judaizers why are they giving them a gospel of any kind? They want to gain something from them. Okay? That is the goal, is to gain something from them. And what Paul is saying is, nothing I've given you has been for my own benefit. He's not trying to please any man. He even says, if you look very carefully, but even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to the one we preach to you, let him be accursed. So no one's exempt, even himself. What benefit is this to Paul? The only benefit is that it rises up to that level of loving others the way God calls us to love them. And so the fact that Paul did not receive the gospel from any human being, not even from an apostle, demonstrates that the Galatians have made a tragic error in even giving an audience to these Judaizers, because they have now listened to what some men have to say. They're not even apostles, but they're not even ones who receive the gospel directly from Christ like Paul did. And that is going to be a driving force as we move on through Galatians. But I want to say this: if you were to do a Bible study of Galatians with an unbeliever, Around this time, you'll get a really interesting question. If they're actually paying attention and they're invested in the Bible study, they'll stop you and they'll say, well, what's the gospel? And when that happens, it's awesome. So there's a real benefit to getting to know someone who doesn't know the gospel and going through a Bible study with them because they ask some really interesting questions. All right, have a good weekend.